Hey guys, it's Alexandra from EyeLoveKnots.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to work my Shea washcloths. These are easy washcloths worked up in simple single crochet stitches. You're going to find the crochet pattern for this linked in the description box below. There are 3 sizes available, and one of those sizes has a long version if you want to make it longer. But any of these could also be made longer simply by working more repeats. For these washcloths, you're going to be using 100% cotton worsted weight yarn. I'm using WeCrochet Dishie Yarn for mine. The blue in the back is called Azure. It's a very bright blue, sorta aqua color. And then this one on the top, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might be the color Clarity. I thought it was the color silver at first, but then I found a silver in my stash and it was darker than this. I thought it was more gray, but I think it's actually Clarity, which is a little bit more blue. Anyways, it is beautiful. They go together so well. I did the border for my Azure one with it. This blue one in the back is going to be my 8-inch size. The one in the front is the 6-inch size. I do have instructions for a 7-inch size as well. Gauge is not essential for this project if the finished size is not essential to you, but I will list it in the description box below. And meeting gauge just means that your finished washcloths are going to come out to the same size as mine, which I'm going to list in the description box as well. But that is going to be the 6, 7, and 8-inch sizes. So together with this worsted weight cotton yarn, I am using an H8 5mm crochet hook. Let's talk about gauge. You'll need a soft tape measure to measure your gauge. I've worked up 8 rows of my washcloth here. Gauge is usually measured over 4 inches wide and 4 inches tall. This right here is going to be 2 inches tall. I measure from my 1-inch mark because you never know how accurate that very edge is. So I measure from the top row there, right at the 1-inch mark, measure it down, not to the end of where my chains are, like not to the very edge there, but to where my stitches are going to fall from row 1. That's going to be my gauge. And you could do it from anywhere, so if you wanted to measure from the top down to row 2, you would just find row 2 right here, and you would start measuring wherever those stitches finish there. So you just don't measure that 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch down to the bottom where your chain starts. You measure just from the top edge to the bottom edge. This is 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They group themselves in 2s from your turning direction, so it's a little bit easier to count. The height is so easy to adjust by simply working less rows or more rows. The width is what's more important. Here I'm going to lay my tape measure, and again I'm doing it from the 1-inch mark. When I look at this, I like to look at the right side, which is the pretty side that's more defined, and I lay it where the stitch is going to start, or you can look at it as where the stitch ends, right in the middle of those 2. That's where you want to lay your tape measure. So here you can see I have it right there on the edge. And you'll want to measure across several stitches here. If I count over 16 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, measuring in the same place on the other side, I'm going to have 16 single crochets equals 4 1/8 inches wide. Just remember, when you measure this, you want to measure in the center of your work. You don't want to measure from the edges because those vary in final measurements there. So you want to take your gauge from somewhere in the center, and I recommend doing it somewhere after about 5 or 6 rows. And that is because sometimes it takes a little bit for your work to take its complete shape. So if you've taken your gauge and the width is smaller than mine, then you'll want to go up a crochet hook size and rework your sample. If you measured and it's coming out larger than mine, then you'll want to switch to a smaller crochet hook and rework your sample. Again, we're just making some basic washcloths, so we're not attaching these to anything. They don't have to meet a certain size, so if gauge is not essential, then you can just skip right over this part. But in case it is essential to you, I just wanted to show you how to do it. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a slip knot, so I've pulled the yarn over my fingers here, wrap it around my index finger 2 times, and I'm holding tension with my thumb and my middle finger. Pull the loop on the left up over the other one but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the loop on the left now up over the other one and off my finger. Take my crochet hook, insert it into the loop on my finger and pull it off. Then I'll hold the working yarn in my right hand and the short tail end in my left. I'm going to pull that to normal tension. I'm going to put up a chart showing how many chains you should have depending on the size that you are working. To chain, we yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. We have 3 chains now. I'm going to go ahead and continue working all my chains. Alright, I've finished all my chains. Now we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. We don't count the loop that's on our hook. We skip this first chain, and in the second chain there we're going to insert our hook right into the center of it. Yarn over and pull through. That gives us 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. Then we're going to continue single crocheting into each chain all the way across. Insert our hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert our hook into the center of the next chain, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. And I'll continue single crocheting all the way across. When I get to the end, I'm going to have 1 less single crochet than the total number of chains that I started with. There's my last stitch. The chain does open up because that is not secured, so we can just hold the fabric and pull the tail end to close that hole. And there is row 1 complete. To count this, we go to the V shapes that are on the top of the stitches. Each one of those V's is a stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. All the remaining rows are worked exactly the same as this next row. We start with chain 1 and turn. Then we single crochet into the very first stitch of the row and each stitch all the way across. Insert our hook into the very first stitch there, picking up both loops from that V shape. Yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both loops. And continue working into each stitch. For each of these remaining rows, you're going to have the same number of single crochets here that you ended with in row 1. And there's row 2 complete. I'll put up a chart now showing how many rows you'll need to have depending on the size that you're working. I'm going to go ahead and work off camera, and then I'll be back to show you how to add a border. Alright, so I have my last row here, and I've worked up to the very last stitch. I'm going to be switching colors for my border, and that's why I've left this one unworked. If you're going to continue in the same exact color for your border, then go ahead and work all your stitches up to the very end. To switch colors here, I'm going to insert my hook into the very last stitch, yarn over and pull through. 2 loops are on my hook. Then I'll grab my new color, which is going to be gray. I have formed a loop with a tail end long enough I can weave in. Put that loop on my hook. This counts as the last yarn over. I am holding tension of the 2 loops with my index finger here. And I'm going to hold the blue tail end against the work so that the loops don't go anywhere. And I'm going to pull that new color through both loops. Then I'll tighten down that blue a little bit, drop the gray tail end, and pick up my new working yarn, and I'm ready to begin with my border. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 and then turn. And since I'm done with my blue, I'm going to fasten that off. As you work your border, if you find that the sides tend to get wavy, it means that your tension on the border is looser than the tension of your washcloth. So you can fix that by either blocking your finished washcloth, or you can go down a hook size for the border only. We're going to start by working a single crochet into the very first stitch. And I am going to tighten up my tail ends here. And then single crochet all the way across to the very last stitch. And in the very last stitch, we're going to work an increase. The next stitch is my very last stitch. We need to increase here so that our corner will lay flat. So we'll work 1 single crochet as normal, chain 1, 1 single crochet back into that same exact stitch. And that's enough of an increase that it's going to lay flat. This is going to give me a rounded edge. If you want something more squared, then you can try adding another chain there in the middle. I'm going to rotate my washcloth here so I can work down the side. And as we work down the side, the rule is you work 1 stitch per row. So that's very simple, no guesswork there. You're going to see 2 different types of stitches. The very next stitch that we have here has a V shape, and you will insert your hook right in the center of that stitch, picking up both of those loops on your hook. And then complete your single crochet. And the next stitch is just a hole. It also has 2 loops there, but they're very tight together and it's harder to see, so just insert your hook into that hole and complete your single crochet. The next stitch, it is the V-shaped stitch. Insert your hook into the center of it, not into the hole, because that's going to create a much larger hole. You want to insert into the center of the stitch, picking up the 2 loops on your hook, and then complete your single crochet. And then the next one, single crochet into the hole, single crochet into the side edge of the next stitch, picking up both loops, single crochet into the hole. And you're going to continue working all the way down till you get to the next corner, and just remember to work as close to the side edge as possible so it doesn't create a big hole here on the side. And I've come to the very last stitch of the row there. I'm going to work an increase in there just like I did before. As you count across your row here, you'll take the total number of rows that you have. Then you will subtract 1, and it will give you what you'll have here in the center, not including your edges. So for example, I'm working here the large size, which has 34 rows. Not including my edges, I have 33 single crochets here down the side. In the next stitch, I'm going to single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. This hole is going to get larger as you work because this knot is not secured yet. So I'm just going to hold my fabric and pull the tail end so it closes that up. I do like to work a couple stitches over my tail end as my first pass of weaving, and then I drop it. I do not crochet over it the entire way because I still want to secure it in a zigzagged way so that the tail end doesn't pull out. So in the very next stitch there, I'm going to insert my hook. We're working now on the opposite side of the foundation chain, but it looks very similar to how it worked when you originally worked into it, and it's very easy to see the stitches. So here is my stitch on my hook. I have the tail end pulled over it as well, and now I'm going to complete my single crochet, which is going to capture that tail end. And I'll do it 2 more times, so I'm going to insert into the next stitch with the tail end over my stitch as well, single crochet, and then work 1 more. I'll hold my fabric here and I'll tighten that up, and then I'm going to drop it, and I will weave the rest of it in later. I'm going to continue single crocheting into each stitch here across, and then I'll increase again when I get into the corner. And I have just 1 more stitch there left to work. The number of stitches that you're going to have here is going to match the same number of stitches that you had on the top. Not counting the corners, you'll take the total number of stitches that you have minus 2, and that's going to be how many stitches you'll have here in the middle. For this large size, I have 30 single crochets in total, so 30 minus 2 gives me 28 single crochets. In the next stitch, I'm going to increase single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. Then I'll rotate my fabric so I can work up the side. You're going to have the same number of stitches up this side as you did on the other side. And the stitches look exactly the same, they're just in a reversed order. So the next one is a hole. Insert your hook into the center of the next one, picking up those 2 loops on your hook. Single crochet in the hole, then single crochet into the center of the next stitch, picking up the 2 loops, and continue all the way up back to the beginning. And now I have reached the very last stitch here on the side. I'm back to the beginning. I want to complete my increase there, so I'm going to take this blue tail and move it to the back. Then single crochet into that very first stitch. And I'm not going to chain one here because instead I'm going to slip stitch join, which is going to be equivalent in size. So I'm going to insert my hook into the very first stitch, picking up both loops, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook. And now my washcloth is complete. I just need to weave in my ends. So I'm going to fasten off my gray here. Then I will pull up on this loop to break it. Insert into the same stitch that I slip stitched to from the wrong side to the right side, yarn over and pull that tail end through to the back. And now all my tail ends are on the back. Go ahead and grab your tapestry needle and meet me back here and I'll show you how to weave in your ends. I threaded my tapestry needle with the tail end that I crocheted over. So I consider when I crocheted over a couple stitches my first pass, so I'm only going to work 2 passes for this. I like to work 3 passes for all my ends. When I enter and exit a stitch, I don't do it through the entire stitch. So I'm not going to pick up the entire stitch here. I'm going to insert my needle into the center of the stitch, breaking it in half. And then I'm going to work back through several of those stitches that I worked. And when I exit, I'm going to break the stitch in half as well, so it captures my yarn better. Before I work my next pass, I'm going to use my fingers to manipulate the fabric here to pull it apart so that this doesn't bunch up. And then I'll insert into a nearby stitch, breaking it in half. Work back through several of the stitches that I just worked. And exit, breaking the stitch in half as well. I always do it this way. And then manipulate the fabric with my hands again. I don't want this to bunch up here. And then I'm going to grab my scissors and fasten off. We'll come back to the other side here. I have 3 ends here because I fastened off the blue to switch to the gray, and then that's going to be my starting tail and my ending tail. So if you haven't switched colors, you're just going to have one tail end, and that's going to be up here. And I'm going to go ahead and weave in vertically here. So I'm going to insert into a stitch here, breaking it in half. Work down through several stitches there on the edge, just making sure to keep my tail end and needle on this wrong side of the work. Break the stitch when I exit and pull through, and then use my fingers to manipulate the fabric. Second pass here, inserting into a nearby stitch, breaking it in half, up through several of those stitches, breaking that last one in half as well. Manipulate the fabric here as needed, and one more pass. If you feel comfortable after 2 passes, you can fasten off then. If you feel like it's a little bit loose and you need to work a 4th pass, go ahead and do that. Whatever you feel the most secure with, that's what you should do. And then I will fasten off. I try to work my ends vertically over horizontally so it doesn't prohibit any of the stretch widthwise. But with these other 2 ends that I have, I am going to do this blue one horizontally in the blue stitches, and the gray I'm going to pull it around and work into the other side of the border there. And I'm just going to make sure that I use my fingers to manipulate that fabric so that it doesn't bunch up. You want everything to just lay naturally and not look squished up or too bulky. So I'm going to go ahead and do those off camera. Your washcloth is now ready to add to your collection, or maybe you're going to wrap it up and give it as a gift instead. You're going to find the crochet pattern for this linked in the description box below. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.